And we're recording. So in this episode, this one's going to be a more fun and on the lighter side. It's not so serious and it's more of a reaction video. And I'm going to be showing Charles Briggs here some of the most, I wouldn't say most, I should say some of the failed product designs out
Mm.
there in the field. And so these are real things that have been marketed and people have purchased these things or they've been made by a specific manufacturer or whoever created this thing. So
Before
without
we
further, oh, go ahead.
before we start, I feel like this is kind of along the same lines of those like you had one job posts. If you've seen those, where it's like you had one job to get it right, and so we'll see. I'm excited. We'll get these reactions.
And so with that being said, some of the primers I have here for Charles is that what his reaction, his genuine reaction to this thing is, and then how as a product designer, how would you fix it, and then to go a step further and to maybe reverse engineer the process. Why was it a failure? So, or how did this come about as a failure in the
Okay,
eyes of the public? Okay, without
you might
further
need to
ado,
remind me.
oh yeah, I'll prompt you for sure.
That's
So
good.
here we go. Let's get number one out. So let's bring back Charles here. And so the caption for this particular product is, let me just make sure I can go to the next slide is,
Do we need to flash like a warning at all before any of
oh
these,
no, I
or
made sure that this is all
okay?
PG friendly and that we won't get a strike from
Sounds good.
YouTube. Yeah, so I made sure I planned that ahead of time, everyone. So there's not going to be any surprises here. So pulling tissues from this box feels uncomfortable.
Ooh, yikes. Okay. Yeah. Spider-Man. If anyone knows anything about arachnids or spiders, you know where the silk comes from. Uh, I know that that's actually been kind of a debate with some Spider-Mans in the past. So yeah, that's some bad art design right there. I wonder what the other side of the boxes look like, if
That's a
they're all
good
that way
question.
or not. I mean, it would have been great if it was the other way around, right? Like if it was coming out of his hand instead. I think that would have been the way to go.
Right, and you got into it already. So that was your initial reaction. You laughed. Why?
Yeah.
Why was it? Or
Yeah.
what provoked the laughter here?
Oh, just I mean, it's coming out of his butt. I don't know if we're allowed to say that on here or not, but I'm going to. So yeah, it that's where I think typically people assume it comes out of arachnids is that rear end, and so I think that's pretty funny. And yeah, being pulling tissues from that is like you don't want to put that on your face afterwards. So I think flipping it around and doing it the other way would be my particular choice. And maybe honestly, like it kind of makes me think, did they just accident? Is this a misprint? You know, like was it supposed to be the other way around? And then they just flipped the artwork in the packaging accidentally. I don't know.
I find this very interesting. So Charles, I want to see if I can pick your brain on the reverse engineering of this because you've been
Mm,
on the product design cycle. So
yeah.
when something like this has to go to a manufacturer, how did this come about when somebody would just okay this? Wouldn't they look at this and be like, something
Yes.
is not right here and get another opinion? So what do you think happened?
Yeah, couple things come to mind initially. So when you create a package, typically you do what is called like a flat lay, or another word for that could be oh, my mind's blanking right now, but yeah, a flat lay. So basically, the box is pretty much unassembled flat, and then what you would end up doing is putting the artwork over it. They would print that onto the packaging, cut it where it needs to be cut, and then fold it up into the final box. Now, typically, whenever you manufacture something and with packaging, you'll create what's called a gold sample. And this is when you say, okay, here's how I want it. The manufacturer will make one of those products, send it to you. Typically, it's a physical thing. They send it to you. You actually have to sign like a sticker that they put onto the product, say, this is the gold standard. Make everything to this spec, pretty much, is what you're doing by signing it. And then it would hand off. So I think The other thing that could have happened here is potentially a culture barrier or a some form of barrier there where, if you're making something like, say, if you're in the US, there's a lot of manufacturing overseas, in different countries, and potentially there could be some form of, uh, you know you're trying to communicate as best as possible, but especially if you're just communicating over emails or even sometimes Zoom, translations can get lost, and people can think you're actually wanting something else than what you're really wanting. And being a good communicator is a big part of producing products and making sure that you can really articulate that final design intent. So I would say, one, either the person designing it messed up by creating a weird flat lay, or two, there was just some form of loss in translation and somebody signed off on it without really checking it. Like they had a time crunch or something, and so it got rushed.
Thank you for sharing all that knowledge, Charles. I didn't even know there was a thing called gold sample, and that's the
Yeah.
sign off and the gold standard. So thank you for sharing that. That was my
Mm.
main takeaway from what you said. All right, you ready for number two?
Yeah, let's do it. Number two.
Okay, for the caption for this one is teaching kids terrible things at Wellington Zoo. And here we go.
Okay. Help us help our environment. Please sort your waste. Feed me landfill. Feed me plastic cans. Oh no. Feed me food and paper. This is not what we're supposed to be teaching our kids. These are terrible things to feed animals. Yes, I think that bottom caption obviously says it all. It's showing you that you're supposed to be feeding these animals these bad things, and really it's helping pollution versus uh, helping get away from it and save the environment, right? So it's
Yeah.
not doing
Yeah.
what the sign is supposed to be doing. Also, I don't know. I had a difficulty reading just like help us help our environment. That feels like a really weird phrasing. I feel like the copy editor, maybe we can redo that at some point too. But that being aside, the animals, you're feeding them trash. Like that is not that is not good. That's not what we want to be uh teaching our kids. I mean, can you just imagine if some kid like threw their can into the lion's mouth, and then they go to the lion exhibit and they like have another can and they're like, "Oh, here you go, lion. I'm trying to give this to you. It says I'm supposed to give it to you, Like that's very impressionable. So I would say maybe not maybe, definitely a fail as well. So which is why we're talking about it. Man, can you like who yeah,
See, this
how
is
did
what I
this
mean. This is what I would love to pick your brain on for some of the things like this.
yeah.
Is again, how would this even happen? And wouldn't someone look at this and say what you just said, have your reaction, or
Mm,
is it just some plot, a marketing plot where this can go viral and then people try to track, oh, where did this originate from? I got to know that zoo and go from there and just have a lot of hits to their website. So I don't know.
yeah.
There's some certain
I
things come to mind off the bat. So in my question back to you,
yeah.
Charles, is how would you fix this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I don't think Big Zoo has like a scheme against the world. Obviously they're here to help us learn more about wildlife and sustainability in our environment. So I think that this was probably a genuine mistake. My guess is people were in the meeting that had to happen for this to sign off. Either somebody noticed it and didn't speak up in that meeting, which is more common than you would think, to be honest, especially when you have directors or like your boss in a meeting. Sometimes you don't want to speak up because that could potentially convey poorly on yourself, and so that is unfortunate. I think being able to feel free enough to be able to speak and say, hey, we shouldn't be feeding animals plastic waste. Like that is not the right message that we want to be sending here. That would be my first thing. How to fix it? Now that is a whole other. I mean, I would just say repaint it, or like this is. It looks like it's kind of too far gone at this point, where maybe you just need to replace the whole sign.
Thank you so much for sharing, Charles. And
Yeah. What do you, I mean, I would love to hear your thought. Like, how would you, if you were the zoo and somebody pointed this out, like, what would you do? You know,
oh my goodness,
I would
yeah,
just scrap it. Like,
yeah. I would say it would probably be the messaging definitely would be changed. And if I'm thinking off the top of my head right now, it'd be more of a messaging on how the trash that you're putting into these bins are affecting the planet. I think
mm,
that'd be a better message. So, recycling is good, and have
yeah.
a statistic, or something like that. And
Well,
when you're separating the trash and recycling, this is important because, and then have why
mm.
that's a reason. So that's how I would approach that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's hard because at a zoo you're trying to hit multiple demographics, right? Like there's grandparents that you're trying to change their ways and or like educate in that way. So maybe a fact or some more copy or text would be really good there. But then there's also like the kid side where you're like they don't care about percentiles and numbers and things like that. They care about a monkey putting a can into it, the trash or into the recycling. And so maybe that would be the thing is change it so the image also depicts the animal putting the trash in there. There could be some more things of like, okay, maybe then the animal, like kids think that the animals will just clean up after themselves versus like us having to do it. So there's some stuff there, but I think showing some really good imagery around like here's why we're doing it rather than saying feed it to the animal. That yeah, but I like what you said, tying in a couple of those different elements so that you're really getting that full age range.
Great, great points.
Mm,
The other thing that you mentioned, and I thought this was excellent that you brought it up, is that speaking up at a meeting, and you were mentioning that this is very common.
yeah.
If someone out there right now is learning about product design, what would you say to them to avoid something like this?
That is key. So I think that this is really down to, I mean, a lot of this is personality, right? And we've talked about this a little bit in the past around like feedback in particular in one of our previous episodes. But I would say product design, but maybe just any design in general. Sorry for my dog. She really has a lot to say around this topic as well. But I would say being able to have a be comfortable in your work environment, whatever that means. That could be talking with your manager to figure out what is your best communication style and how do you like to communicate in meetings, or how does the company kind of expect you to communicate, and you can work towards that. Some of it is being comfortable with your coworkers, so maybe that's getting to know them, which is, I know a lot of designers are introverts, and so sometimes that can be really hard in terms of my thing that I found is setting up one-on-one meetings with people that I work with continually to actually get to know them outside of work. And that can really help with communication inside of work. And then lastly is, uh, yeah, just realizing and maybe reframing. I think sometimes in business settings, it can become a very like, uh, you're competing within the business, but realizing that you're really all focused on the same goal, which is to like either educate in a certain way or sell a certain product or do a certain thing. Reorienting your mindset around, okay, we're all trying to accomplish the same goal. And by me speaking up, it's just going to help us get to that conclusion better. It's not like I'm trying to stop something, so in this sign in particular, maybe they were about to sign that golden sample and they're like, you're in that meeting and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Is this really depicting the goal that we want, of the sign? And I think being able to have that, uh, speak that up, realize that you are all on the same playing field is really important. And if you're at a company or in a meeting and you do speak up and for whatever reason your voice is, I don't know, for lack of a better word, oppressed or just like not heard or kind of scoffed at, um, then I think that that's a bigger issue and within maybe the company, and that's something that you can talk either about with your manager or HR, because really within a company you are a team and you're trying to build towards a certain goal. So you need to be able to feel comfortable expressing that opinion. And if you don't, just I mean, it's some self discovery around why am I not feeling comfortable, and then what are action steps that I can take to feel more comfortable. Realizing that it is partly your responsibility. Like, it is your responsibility to do that. As much as we would love it for somebody else to be like, oh, Charlie, I realized you didn't speak up in that meeting. What can I do to help you? Like, I would say 9 out of 10 times nobody's going to do that, and it's on you to say, okay, here's my personal responsibility to myself and to the company, and to actually speak up, to better myself, to be able to do some of these things, or at least to mention it, and then get an ally that can help you with that. I kind of went off on a tangent there. Sorry.
And that's okay. That's okay. I
Back
think
to
you brought up some really good points about getting to know your coworkers and standing up for something that you believe in your heart, kind of thing. So
yeah.
I really like that, and I think that's a great message for up and comer designers and stuff like that, and maybe
Mm.
even some people that just needed to hear that. So I
Mm.
think that was really good. All right, are you
Yeah.
ready for
Yeah.
number 3 now? Number
Back to the
3.
reactions.
All right, so let's go here. So the caption here: this company really values their customers' opinions.
Opinions. Yes. Oh my goodness. Suggestion box, dustbin. Can you make that
Oh,
bigger?
bigger? Yep.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
people can still look at it for a second. Um, this is wow. I love this. This makes me think about when people talk about having a special trash can that's like just a paper shredder, or a special filing system. They're like, oh yeah, I'll file this, and it's just like a paper shredder, and they just like shred it right in front of you. I don't know if you've ever seen that trope in like comedies or movies or television. Um, that's exactly what this looks like. Is there an actual slit on the top? Yeah, I think there is. So this is a real suggestion box. It's not a gag. And then there's a trash bin underneath of it. So yeah, if you're just listening to this or you can't see it, it's a suggestion box with, you put the suggestions on the top, and then underneath of it is what it says is a dustbin or a trash can. Here in the States, that's what we call it. And so you would put your trash in the bottom, but it makes it look like your suggestions are going into the trash. Um, Hopefully I described that well if you're just listening to this. But yeah, that's ooh, this is bad. I mean, they're all bad, right? Like, that's why we're doing these reactions videos. But Andres, wow. How wow. You had one job, right? um I I'm at a loss for words. This is yeah. I mean, even next to, right? It's because it's right on top of it. If it was next to the dustbin, maybe that would be even a little bit better, or just separating it entirely. But because it's right on top of it, it looks like you're just throwing your suggestions right into the trash. Um, which I might say that might be the intention of MTT or MTCC, whatever that is. I don't know. Is to say, hey, we don't care about your, like, give us suggestions, but we're just going to do it however we want. That could be the messaging here. I mean, that's what they're showing us, whether they want to or not. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's tricky because I don't know any backstory to this company either. But
I
it's
don't
really
either.
interesting because at the same time, my funny mind goes into this other place where maybe the product designer was trying to do two things at once. And what I really mean by that is having to do something with this particular product is to be able to do these two items. So they can put the suggestion in, but if they also happen to walk by with some of their stuff that they need to discard, then they can do that too. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, I could see why this could be like a dual purpose thing. But
Mhm.
because those two actions don't line up so well, that it creates this really, really off putting message. And that's what comes to
Yeah.
mind for me. So, Charles, going back to how to improve this as a product designer, what would you
Mm.
do?
Yeah, I think having it. Well, that's an interesting point that you brought that up, Andres, with the two-in-one design, because it could be something where, maybe they're submitting a suggestion, and for some reason they also like the form factor that they're given, whether that's like a suggestion card or something, has a piece of trash tied with it or like associated with it. And so that's why they put it together. It's like, I need to put the suggestion here. Oh, and I have this piece of litter that got made because I don't know, used the suggestion, and so I want to throw it away at the same time. And so they're trying to do this two-in-one thing. But I mean, I would say side by side instead of on top of each other. The thing that you're losing there is space. So right now it has, with things on top of each other, you have a lot of smaller footprint that this kiosk, I guess, for lack of a better word, is taking up. So if you were to put it side by side, it would increase the footprint of the device, taking up floor space, but it would, I think it would maybe be a little bit clearer to people that there is a suggestion box and then there's a dustbin. Also, even separating it, because this is built into one unit, if you separated it, so even if it was just the bottom part was blue and the dustbin, and then on top of it was like a wooden suggestion box or like a different color, so it looks separated, because right now it's a seamless line all the way through. So even if you just kind of broke that up with some sort of panel line or something to show like these are two separate things stacked on top of each other. So maybe the top is like a white suggestion box and the bottom is a blue dustbin, would be really helpful. And just saying like, okay, here's the two notes, or the two, like this degree of separation.
That makes a lot of sense how you describe it. So imagine that there was everyone that's listening. Imagine if the ballot or the suggestion paper had a tearaway. That yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think
Yeah.
just to riff off of Charles's idea is to incorporate graphic design into this. Is that it could have a traveling that part that's discarded to be traveling down into that little bin, and that would make the suggestion of this box be more in line with what they're trying to say. Is like, we're trying to alleviate some of the footprint of having the two bins, and then that way we can hit the two-in-one kind of thing. And I think that would be a better message for sure for how this gets perceived, especially on on the internet.
I will also note, just because it's kind of interesting, is it looks like there is, it's in a bilingual country, or at least they're doing an English version, and um, I don't even want to guess what language is right above it, but you can see like dustbin and suggestion box have other text above it, and so I think that maybe even would make it more important to distinguish in a certain way, because you're dealing with people like uh, you're dealing with a lot of different cultures, right? And you want to make sure that it's accessible to everyone. We just finished an episode, our last episode 17, around 360 design and sort of accessibility within that. And so making sure, one of the things is our language barrier or our cultural barrier as well, and making sure that you're designing for one world, right? uh, I think is important.
Yes, thank you for those points, Charles. And last but not least, I have one
Yes.
more to
Okay.
share with you, and this is the one I'm gonna have our episode end on. So thank you everyone for joining our episode here. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please consider subscribing. And if you have any other additional thoughts on everything that we reviewed today, please put it in the comments below.
Definitely.
All right, here we go.
Not fine.
Caption here is not fine, not fine at all.
I'm already laughing. Oh no. Fine fart. Oh man. Fine art. Fine fart. I think you could speak to this one a little bit more than I can. Because this is a graphics issue, right? Like fine.
Yes, yes, it definitely is, and I just find it very humorous because
Oh,
of fine art, and that one saying a lot of people say, the artsy fartsy. So in my
yes.
mind, I don't know if they're actually really playing into that, and that's what created this type of typography treatment. So that way, it's a nod to that, and also to poke fun at the artist, whoever
Mm,
created this package design, and so that's what comes to mind immediately. But at the same time, it didn't get well received on the internet, and it was definitely
yeah.
considered a fail.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, can I ask you more of a technical question? Because it popped out real quick to me. was the distance between the F and the A just looks wrong. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what that is called within graphic design. I don't know if you know the technical term off the bat, but like, why does that look
Mm-hmm.
wrong? I don't know.
So the spaces between each letter, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well,
So,
particularly the F and the A, right?
mhm.
Like it's fine for the word fine, but for the word fart, it's all messed up.
Yeah, so there's two things that are happening here, and it's the letting. So that's the space between fine or the I and E and art. So in that space between there, that looks off as well. And then there's also spaces or the space between each letter horizontally is called kerning. So those are the two things that are happening here, and so that's why I mentioned to Charles in this particular typography treatment is that the A and the F are so close together, it looks intentional. So that's what I mean. And like, is this a sick joke? Something that people wanted to really just make really fun of these artists and stuff like that. So that's what comes to mind immediately. But maybe at the same time, someone who was just trying to be very clever with the use of fine and not have as much typography experience. So it totally
Mm.
they totally gapped it. So those are the thoughts that came to mind.
Is this do you know, I don't, when you found these images, is this an actual brand? Is the brand called Fine Fart?
You know what? I actually didn't go that
I don't
deep,
know.
but I
I
think the actual brand is it's to the right of it maybe, and
Okay.
the fine art's just the label
Fine
in
art.
terms of what uses this kind of thing.
Because I've seen some branding where they poke fun at some of those things in like in other industries, and so Fine Fart I feel like could be a brand actually if you want to do that too. But yeah, definitely a typography fail. So how would we fix that? That's the next question that you always ask me is how would we fix that?
Oh, let me go back to the example here. The way to fix this would be to look at how we can treat the typography differently. And so, with that being said, contrast is king in terms of typography. Is that you want to have some elements differentiate from each other. So when you read something, it is very clear. So fine would be maybe big and bold like it is there, and then art could be more of a thinner typeface. And I think will fix the problem immediately. Make it scale it down. Maybe fine art is just on one line. I can see maybe where some of the marketing people really wanted to fill in that white space there, but with white space or negative space, it's a good thing because that way it gives the eye some places to rest, and maybe that's what they were battling against or something like that. But yeah, I'm not too sure though if it is a brand. Like imagine if this is a real brand, and that's the whole gag.
Maybe that's it. If it's not, let us know in the comments below if you want us to start the brand Fine Fart, and we can start our artistic brand
Yeah,
around that.
good
Develop our
one.
art tools.
And with that being said, that concludes our episode for today. And again, thank you everyone for watching this one. If you like our reactions to these types of things that we find on the internet, please let us know. We can definitely do more reaction videos. I can curate them so when Charles comes onto the show, he can see them for the very first time, and I'll do some research on that. So let me
And
know,
vice
or
versa.
submit, yeah, or submit some more fails, and maybe we can take a look at that,
Yes.
and maybe that would be a good episode on how Charles or I can fix it.
Mhm. You have our Instagram handles as well as you can comment below. But yes, definitely send some of those fails similar to these. I would love to look at more of them and see what can we do to fix them. I really like this episode, Andres. I think it was a great idea. So I'm I'm game to do another one. Maybe this is just part one.
All right, we'll do that for sure. All right, everyone, take care and have a wonderful day, and wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.